The Fully Blooded Felons began operating in northern Ohio and the Ohio prison system in 2012 when they broke away from the Heartless Felons. They are led by Jerry Mullins, or B-Money, who was convicted of attempted felonious assault in 2010, robbery and burglary in 2011, twice, and robbery in 2015. Devonte Johnson, or D-Nut or Nut, is a high-ranking member. He was convicted of robbery in 2011 and drug trafficking in 2018. Raven Mullins, or Dunny or Dunn, is also a high-ranking member. He was convicted of attempted felonious assault in 2010, robbery in 2011 twice, and burglary in 2011. Henry Burchett, or Noodles or New, is a third high-ranking member. He was convicted of attempted aggravated burglary in 2017 and receiving a stolen motor vehicle in 2019. A fourth member is Dontez Hammond, or Donny. He was indicted for drug trafficking in 2023. A fifth member, Cortez Tyree, or Seed, was convicted of aggravated robbery in 2013. This information is important because being a convicted felon or under indictment for a felony makes things illegal that otherwise would not be. At the end of the video, we will discuss what is required to meet racketeering influenced in Criminal Organization Act violations as charged in criminal court. These are 6 of the 15 men indicted in a Rico case in the federal court in northern Ohio. Let's talk about why they were indicted right after my overly obnoxious trigger warning. But first, everything in this video is alleged, accused, or my opinion only. Roll the intro. The remaining 9 men under indictment are Rodney Linson, or Scrap, Elijah Johnson, or Loon, Demarcus Elliot, or Moo, Jeffrey Lee, or Fatty, Jarrell Jones-Farrell, or Ruga, Jerome Williams, or Jay, Christepher Horton, or Cam, or Killa, Deeundra Perkins, or Drizzy, and Deon Blackwell, or White Boy. Their main base of operations is Cedar Estates, a large apartment complex in Chicago. The gang had 2 apartments in Cedar Estates, apartment 91 on the 2nd floor and apartment 96 on the 3rd floor. The apartments were referred to as the 2nd and the 3rd by gang members. They utilized these 2 apartments as storage for their illicit goods, private meeting places, and distribution points for illicit substances and goods. They also used the grassy area adjacent to the building and the sidewalk in front of 28th Street Liquor as distribution points. Let's discuss some specific methods and means the gang used to support the Rico conspiracy. On June 10, 2023, Jay Mullins was arrested at the corner of East 30th and Cedar in Chicago. He was in possession of a Glock 43 9mm handgun, 6 grams of crack, and 44 pills containing a mixture of diamond. In the first chapter, I mentioned that Jay Mullins was convicted of several felony offenses, which makes possessing a gun a felony for him. On June 27, 2023, Jay Mullins texts an unknown individual attempting to sell a gun for a combination of drugs and money. Jay Mullins talks to Jones-Farrell about the gun the same day. The next day, June 28th, Jay Mullins is texting an unknown individual letting them know that R. Mullins has an AR-style weapon. Fast forward to September 6th, and Burchett is informing E. Johnson that Burchett is in Chicago looking for 3.5 grams of probably a quarter ounce of weed. E. Johnson says he'll take $100 for the drugs. On September 12th, Burchett makes a deal through Instagram and uses Apple Pay to collect the money, which was supplied from the 2nd. On September 24th, Burchett has a text conversation where he discusses the ways and means of getting fully blooded felon members without criminal records jobs in the correctional facility in Youngstown, Ohio. 2 days later, he talks to somebody on the phone before sending them the website where they can apply for jobs at this facility. Let's take a little look at what Linson and E. Johnson were up to in October of 2023. On October 10th, E. Johnson orders Burchett and Elliot to a location he designated to conduct drug sales, demonstrating a hierarchy in the gang. On October 13th, Jones-Farrell tells Burchett that Little Bro is bringing a key to the second for Jones-Farrell. On October 14th, Burchett agrees to leave at the second for a customer. Twice. On October 20th, Jones-Farrell and Perkins are each witnessed engaging in 6 hand-to-hand transactions in and around Cedar Estates. On October 23rd, 2023, Burchett tells Elliot he's sending a customer over. On October 25th, Burchett tells a customer that he has sheets and strips for sale, then takes a call from a second customer who he sends to the second to pick up weed. Burchett also places several calls to an unknown woman who he is attempting to purchase phone sheets from. On October 26th, Burchett sends a customer to the second for. Let's see what our boys were getting up to in November of 2023, shall we? On November 1st, 2023, Burchett and R. Mullins talk on the phone about sharing keys to the second and the third. On November 2nd, Burchett and Williams talk about sharing keys to the second. On November 3rd, Burchett and Elliot discuss getting information on a robbery target from an unknown woman the next day. On November 5th, Burchett calls Lee. Lee claims he is in the third and Burchett tells him to open up. Burchett, DB, and an unindicted co-conspirator we will call Dumas number 3, the spelling is below my face on the screen right now, have several three-way calls about the fine DB needs to pay to become a capo in the Fully Blooded Felons. Later, DB and Burchett discuss the means and methods of smuggling sheets into prison. Then, Linson and Burchett discuss DB's $700 fine and providing DB with sheets. On November 6th, Burchett and Williams discuss buying and selling. Then Burchett directs a customer to the third to make a purchase. Lee and Burchett talk twice. The first time, Burchett asks if a woman purchased from Lee, and the second, Lee tells Burchett to send the woman to 28th Street Liquor. November 7th, Elliot texts NM informing him that Elliot will shut down once NM opens up. Perkins conducts a hand-to-hand sale outside Cedar Estates and D. Johnson conducts 5. On November 8th, Burchett took a nap inside the second while Jones-Farrell was selling at 30th and Cedar. Tyree also tells E. Johnson he needs pills and uncut. November 9th was a busy day for the Fully Blooded Felons. Tyree is in Warren and Burchett is trying to buy from E. Johnson. D. Johnson is stopped in a Jaguar XR with $828 in cash and a gray Ruger LC9. Burchett texts E. Johnson about meeting up in Warren. Burchett texts an unknown customer telling him weed is available at the third. NM, Linson, and Elliot are there. Tyree tells E. Johnson that himself, Burchett, and Horton are on the way. E. Johnson responds to ask if they have pills. Then, E. Johnson provides to Burchett, Tyree, and Horton. Tyree, Horton, and Burchett are in a white 2014 BMW with 55 grams of when police stop them. Burchett calls Elliot and tells him police have Tyree in the back of a cruiser. Burchett talks to Lee, who is outside 28th Street Liquor with NM, who confirmed that Burchett's customer bought Perkins is witness selling outside 28th Street Liquor and around Cedar Estates. On November 12th, Perkins is selling around Cedar Estates. Burchett records a video of Perkins bragging about the fact that fully blooded felons are always around with to sell. On November 13th, Hammond tells R. Mullins that he needs a gun. R. Mullins gets him a MAC-10 style weapon to use in robberies. They also discuss Hammond's girlfriend's arrest the day before and posting bond for her. Later, Hammond is driving a black Ford Edge when police attempt to pull him over. Hammond stops in a parking lot and flees on foot. While fleeing, Hammond throws a Masterpiece Arms 9mm, a MAC-10 style weapon, into a garbage can. Police retrieve the gun as well as a loaded 50-round drum and Hammond's ID from the edge. Hammond tells Mullins about the situation and NM tells Hammond where to hide. Half an hour later, Hammond calls back and Mullins tells him to stay where he is. Later, R. Mullins tells Elliot that he got some bad or fake, and Elliot says he'll blow down on the supplier. Burchett calls R. Mullins. The two are not happy about Lee keeping a shipment of or the impounding of his vehicle from them. R. Mullins and Linson discuss DB being made an official member of the Fully Blooded Felons. On November 14th, Horton tells R. Mullins he needs a Pyrex, which these guys use to cook. On November 17th, Elliot and Burchett discuss E. Johnson and a fellow inmate named K smuggling cell phones into the Youngstown prison. On November 20th, R. Mullins and Hammond talk about taking over the jails. R. Mullins states, "We finna send young fully blooded felons in the jails and prisons. We need correctional officers, case managers, custodians. We need something." Burchett sends a customer to the second to set up a deal with them. On November 21st, R. Mullins asks Burchett for a Pyrex, then texts an unknown person with the same request. Burchett asks Lee for a gun. Lee tells him there's a .380 in his room on the shelf. R. Mullins texts someone about buying ammunition and the two make plans to meet the next day. R. Mullins tells Blackwell that he and Horton need a Pyrex. On November 22nd, R. Mullins talks to an unknown person about sales, 2 grams of for $120. Then R. Mullins orders Lee to be outside selling. R. Mullins also agrees to sell 5 grams of for $170. On November 28th, Williams and Burchett arrange to sell to an unknown buyer. Williams buys pills from Burchett. The two then confirm they possess different sizes of and also confirm quantities and prices for a sale. On November 29th, Horton brags to Burchett about a big sale and says he's going to pick up his gun. Elliot is found carrying a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson, a hydraulic press, 2 pistol magazines, 15 grams of 215 grams of in Youngstown, Ohio. R. Mullins and an unknown woman discuss how Fully Blooded Felons members are being picked up by the U.S. Marshals. R. Mullins mistakenly believes it is because they are armed and dangerous. Horton also tells Elliot that R. Mullins owes him $300 and asks for $150 worth of. The boys had a busy November, and some of them are no longer free men. Let's see what they got up to in December of 2023. On December 2nd, Burchett tells an unknown man to weigh out a quarter ounce of weed for Dumas number 2. Burchett also tells a different man to get an eighth and give it to Dumas number 2. On December 5th, Blackwell and Burchett confirm their knowledge that E. Johnson is in Houston. On December 6th, R. Mullins, Burchett, and Tyree are caught with 38 grams of 6 grams of digital scales, drug packing materials, and multiple cell phones in the second. R. Mullins and Burchett are caught with 286 grams of 23 grams of 198 2 grams of and multiple cell phones in the third. R. Mullins and Burchett have 7 handguns and multiple gun parts in the third. The arrests cause everyone to lay low for the remainder of the month. On January 18th, E. Johnson left vacuum-sealed bags with residue in them in a hotel room in Youngstown, Ohio. On February 2nd, E. Johnson makes a video showing he is in possession of several thousand in Houston, Texas. Then he flies to Cleveland where he rents a Dodge Durango. E. Johnson meets up with CB, who takes the Durango and gives E. Johnson the Dodge Ram. AS texts E. Johnson a Cleveland address and E. Johnson starts driving towards the address. Police attempt to stop him, but E. Johnson flees at a high rate of speed. After crashing the Ram, E. Johnson flees on foot. And that is how 15 members of the Fully Blooded Felons earned a 44-page indictment from the U.S. government. Let's wrap this video up, shall we?
6 in the morning, police at my door. Fresh Adidas squeak across the back.
According to the DOJ's website, RICO charges require 5 conditions to be met. 1. An enterprise must exist. 2. The enterprise must affect interstate commerce. 3. The defendant must be employed by or affiliated with the enterprise. 4. The defendant must engage in a pattern of racketeering activity. 5. The defendant must engage in at least 2 racketeering activities for the organization in a 2-year period. The DOJ defines an enterprise as an enterprise is defined as including any individual partnership, corporation, association, or other legal entity, and any union or group of individuals associated in fact, although not a legal entity. Do you think the Fully Blooded Felons meets this definition? Leave a comment. Let me know. The indictment alleges that E. Johnson going to Houston to pick up fentanyl pills and then bringing them back to Ohio is interstate commerce. Do you agree? Let me know in a comment. Do you think that the FBI, by virtue of the statements made previously in this video and listed in the indictment, has shown that all 15 of these men are affiliated with the Fully Blooded Felons' criminal activities? Has each of the 15 men in this indictment been shown to engage in at least 2 instances of racketeering for the Fully Blooded Felons in the last 2 years? Finally, did all of this happen within the last 2 years? Did all of this happen within 6 months? I believe the answer to all these questions for all these men is yes, which amounts to guilt, legally speaking. However, if you believe the answer to any of these questions is no for any of these 15 men, then any of the men you believe the answer is no for are innocent, legally speaking. So what do you think? Leave a comment and let me know. Don't forget to like the video, share it around, and subscribe to the channel. Memberships are available if you'd like to financially support what I'm doing here. And with that, I got a jams tag. You're it.
Streets after 5 in the deuce. 7 years later, but still had the juice. My homeboy Hen G put me up on the track. Told me E's rolling villain, BJ's got the sack. Bruce is a giant that sees clock and dough. Bebop's a pimp, my old freak's a hoe. The batter ram's rolling, rocks are the thing. Life has no meaning and money is king. Then he looked at me slowly and Hen had to grin. He said, man, you out early, we thought you got 10. Opened up his safe, kicked me down with cold cash. Knew I would get busy, he didn't waste time to ask.